Hello. Hello. Am I live? Let me have a wee check. Yep, looks like I'm live, folks. Are you with me? If you are with me live at 5, give me a little hashtag live in the comments below. And if you're catching me on replay, give me a hashtag replay in the comments below. So, tonight, live at 5, is a huge topic. I have a lot to get through. And I actually should have probably broken this down a little bit, because when I started looking at it earlier in the week, I get sucked into research and I get sucked into numbers, and then I have to try very hard to try and go, nope, this is not what this is about. This is about application to real life. So I've had to digest quite a lot of stuff and then think on it and then turn it into something more digestible. So, are you having a good day? If you're having a good day, put me a 1 in the chat box, and if it has been a good day, tell me why in the chat box. If you had a rubbish day, let me know why this in the chat box. So, having an awesome week over here. So for those of you that are in the know, I had my sister's wedding at the weekend and it was wonderful. And then we had a night away with some friends. So back to reality this week. And this week I am delighted to be introducing 3 lovely new future success stories. We've got the lovely Tess, we've got the lovely Vicky, and we've got the lovely Caroline. So welcome to the gang, guys. You'll be, obviously, when you move into the Academy group, still have access to this group as well, because quite a lot of stuff still happens here, but kind of going into the higher level coaching group is your next step. So welcome to the gang. Lovely to have you on board. Sarah has got to the bottom of the ironing pile. I don't know how she's managed it. She has a toddler. My child is nearly 10 and I have yet to reach the end of the ironing pile because I despise ironing. So well done, young Sarah. And there's Parky. I've seen your face in a wee while, young lady. Hope you're doing lovely. So let's get this thing cracking then. So tonight is all about the impact of alcohol on fat loss and the impact of alcohol on hormones. So I've done quite a lot of stuff on hormones over the last wee while. If you've not seen the stuff on hormones, either go scroll through the guide section or go to the pinned post at the top of the group and enter hormones, and somebody, Megan or Lisa, will send you that over. But tonight is focusing on alcohol. So some fascinating facts for you. Now, I want you to be very, very upfront here that I am not about people giving up alcohol. If you want to give up or reduce alcohol, that is a decision you want to make for yourself. If you think you have issues with alcohol and you need help, there's a number of resources that I can help you out with. Just send me a private message rather than, you might not, want to put your name down in here. But as a principle, AMW Academy, we're not about giving up booze because it would be very hypocritical, because I love a beer, Clara loves a beer, we like a wine, so whatever it is has to work for everybody's individual situation. But anyway, so some fascinating facts for you that in recent study, this is UK based, so you US ladies can just apply a similar principle. So 30% of UK women regularly drink more than the weekly recommended amount, which is 14 units. 30% of women in the UK report that they binge drink monthly or more, and 20% of women don't drink at all. Okay, so when I look at that across my network, I would say that that's probably about right. So have a think about your own situation too and see how that is. But the thing about alcohol is alcohol misuse in the UK is the biggest risk factor for death, ill health and disability among 15 to 50-year-olds. Okay, so that's quite a huge stat. Biggest risk factor for death. Now, obviously the health impacts of alcohol are pretty huge. We also know that the health impacts and factors of obesity are also huge, but there is also alcohol can then make the obesity impacts and factors even worse. So we want to look at how does alcohol contribute to obesity and body fat. And one of the things that I've found in my experience over the last few years is how people do one thing is how they do everything. So that is typically very true when, like, we speak to a lot of yo-yo dieters and emotional eaters and all or nothing type mindset ladies. And if that applies to food, there's a very high percentage of those women that also applies to alcohol. And if that applies to food and alcohol, the all or nothing mindset tends to apply in the workplace, with family, with feeling in control. So there's a knock-on effect in different areas of our life. So when looking at alcohol from a fat loss point of view, now you probably will have, most people will know a lot of what I'm going to tell you tonight, but sometimes I think it's really beneficial just to hear a little bit more detail about it. So alcohol is known as empty calories. Now what that simply means is that alcohol will provide you with calories, so calories is an energy source, but it is the only thing that we can consume that contains little to no nutrients. Okay, so you're just consuming calories with no other benefit at all. Okay, so that is what that means. It means it's just empty calories. So if you think about like a glass of wine, like a medium glass of wine tends to contain about 150-ish calories a glass. A bottle of wine is about 600 to 700 calories a bottle. Now, most women, if they're on fat loss, it depending on their training requirements and their energy output. But if you think a lot of women are going to be on calories of around 1400 all the way up to about 1900, that tends to be quite a good buffer. 700 calories of that being a bottle of wine is a lot to consume when you're not getting any nutrient benefit from that, okay? So if you think about things like if you're having a spirit and you maybe have a vodka and fresh orange, or you have a vodka and Coke, the calorie-free ones obviously aside, but your full sugar items are going to contain also quite a lot of calories as well. So think about that from a fat loss point of view. This could be one of the easiest changes that you could make. So the second main issue that we have with alcohol when we're losing fat is that when we have alcohol in our system, our body is going to use that as its primary source of fuel. So if you don't have alcohol in your system, the primary source of fuel are carbohydrates. So when we're consuming alcohol, it's burned first as its primary fuel source before your body touches anything else. That means it's not going to use the glucose from the carbohydrates, or it's not going to use the lipids from fat. So when you're using alcohol as your primary source of energy, that means that any excess glucose or any excess lipids, they end up as fat, and fat that you would store. So think about that, and then the next day, when you're hungover, if you've got the carb munchies, your body's still burning off that alcohol as its fuel, and it's not touching those extra fuel sources, the excess carbohydrates or the excess fats. Okay. From an organ point of view, if you think about your liver is your detoxer, if you like. It is the filter of your body for any substances that your body shouldn't have, like drugs or alcohol. This is why you don't need to do detoxes, because your body does this already. But anyway, the liver also plays quite a big role in how our metabolism works in terms of how it metabolizes fats, carbs, and proteins. So if we're consuming lots more alcohol, there's a condition called a fatty liver, and that can damage your liver, which then impacts heavily how your body metabolizes and stores ultimately carbs and fats. And then when we have those changes in place, then we can actually find it very, very difficult to lose body fat. So so far, is this all making sense? Is this all new to you, or is this old hat? Let me know in the comments. Keep them coming, because it's important that I'm not just waffling on. It's not nice to see me just waffling on. Okay, so we've got the liver part of things, and we know obviously that heavy drinking over a prolonged period of time can then go in and cause cirrhosis of the liver. It can cause cancer of the liver, etc., etc. Thinking about alcohol, one of the things, this is a bit of a hormonal thing as well. So when we get older, our hormones change, and that means where we store body fat changes. So we might start storing more weight around our tummy, but this can also happen when and be a contributor of alcohol as well. So foods and drinks that are high in sugar, so like sweeties, fizzy juice, alcohol, they tend to be also very, very high in calories, and these obviously calories end up getting stored as fat. But when you're consuming lots of foods and drinks that are high in sugar, it's going to lead to weight gain. But what tends to happen with these high sugary foods, high glucose foods, they tend to get stored around the abdominal area anyway. Hi Sarah, yes, that day on the beach. You can share, you can come on and do a live and share about your day on the beach. So that's why you might see an alcohol belly or a beer gut, as a common term. Alcohol impairs our judgment. Now, I want you all to think back to any poor decision making that you have made when you've been drunk. But for the purposes of today, we're going to think about it in terms of food. So, when we are consuming alcohol, and even just a glass of wine, it can really, really inhibit our judgment. It lowers our inhibitions, leads to poor decision making, whether that is food or men or women. So when it comes to food choices, we tend to go for, the high carbs, soak up the alcohol types foods. But there's studies now suggesting that alcohol can trigger the hunger signals in the brain, which then it leads to an increased urge to overeat and eat more carb heavy foods and high sugar foods. Sleep. Now, this is one area that I have really been impacted by, actually. So now, when I have a couple of glasses of wine, or even I go out and have more than a couple of glasses of wine, my sleep is atrocious, like in terms of restlessness, in terms of time of wake up, in terms of deep sleep. And this is all tracked on this wee bad boy for me here. I use an Oura ring, and I know a few girls that are on live, they use an Oura ring, but you can get, like, your Fitbit tracks your sleep and stuff. So it's definitely worthwhile checking how your heart rate changes, your core body temperature, your deep sleep, your REM, all these things are impacted by alcohol. And once we find that we are having our sleep impacted, then that is a form of stress, which is a hormonal thing on the body. And that can then lead to even more of an imbalance of the hormones. That then has a knock-on effect to your hunger levels, to how satisfied you are when you eat, as well as how we're storing energy, excess energy. Okay, so far it's not painting a pretty picture, really, is it? But in terms of, everybody could probably do with reducing their overall alcohol intake. Because as well as lowering our overall decision-making powers and our inhibitions, alcohol also impacts our digestive function as well. So it can cause stress in the tummy and the intestines. And some women, especially kind of from mid-40s upwards, find that they actually get really affected by alcohol, whether that's diarrhea or constipation or kind of irritable bowel type symptoms. But that's because the way our digestive system works, there's all these secretions, and what happens is we're moving everything down the intestines. But if we're not breaking down the food properly and that's getting absorbed properly by the body, alcohol impairs that digestive process and impairs the absorption of the nutrients, which then can impact all of your organs and stomach, etc., etc. So, and that all plays a role in when you're trying to manage your weight as well. So yeah, everybody could probably afford to drop some alcohol. Yes, Sarah, let's not talk about that. Let's not do that, shall we? So I think, yeah, everyone can probably do with reducing their overall alcohol take, especially when it comes to fat loss. Now, we've worked with a number of ladies over the years who have given up alcohol completely and not seen any change in terms of their weight. But what happens, that tends to be a behavioural thing, because we drop alcohol and we think we're saving all these calories, and we tend to then use those calories elsewhere. So, oh, well, I deserve a takeaway because I'm not drinking wine tonight, or I deserve a meal out because I'm not having a few pints. And from the calorie point of view, it tends to be replaced. But the other thing that we also see is sometimes it can take a while for your body to rebalance, especially when you've got hormonal changes going on. But the thing I would say to you though is, unless, there is a lot of support out there if you do feel that you are drinking too much and you do want to change, and it's certainly something that we've helped a lot of ladies with over the years. So, moving into our hormonal situation. So, the hormone system is called the endocrine system, and along with our central nervous system, which is our brain and our spinal cord, these two areas talk to everywhere else in the body to maintain homeostasis, which is essentially staying on an even keel. And if you think about hormonal changes, in your 40s and 50s, you don't actually feel on an even keel, and that's because all these our sex hormones are all changing. But anyway, central nervous system and endocrine system work together to create balance. That's ultimately that. But the endocrine system / hormones control our metabolism, and they control our energy levels. They control our growth, our development, our balance of electrolytes in the blood, reproduction, and plays an essential role in making sure that the body copes with environmental changes. So that can include stress, temperature, electrolyte balance, and therefore alcohol and other substances will have adverse impact on the endocrine system and your hormones. So what can happen now when we have, it's called alcohol-induced hormonal dysregulation, that can impact the entire body, and it can result in loads of different impacts. You could be looking at cardiovascular disorders, we could be looking at reproductive issues, immune deficiencies. There's some cancers that research is telling us to keep an eye on, as well as psychological things and behavioural things. So alcohol does actually play quite a hefty negative role in our endocrine system, which is, when I was doing a lot of my research, I was like, oh my shitty God, Jesus, let's not do this anymore. But when we look at it in much greater detail, it's really interesting looking at the impacts on alcohol on women before menopause and women after menopause. So because of the age range of you guys, I have to look at both of these. So if we look at before menopause, so, I don't know, everybody goes through menopause at different ages, but before menopause, so drinking alcohol can affect the ovaries, which, as we know, can then impact on fertility issues, and it can change hormones and create deficiencies in certain hormones and create lowered sex drive as well. And that is actually a real one thing that really comes through when we're coaching our women, is that, reduced sex drive because of alcohol is a real thing. But obviously this all depends on how much you're drinking. Like if you're having a couple of glasses of wine a week, probably not going to impact it so much. But if you're having a bottle of wine 3 times a week, yeah, there's likely going to be impacts here. So what we do know is that alcohol increases the amount of estrogen that we have in our systems, but can also lower the progesterone levels in our bodies as well. Now, this is not always a bad thing, because estrogen is something that declines as we're getting older anyway. But if we're increasing estrogen and we're lowering progesterone, one of the things that they've identified now in research is that there's a direct link to increased risk of breast cancer. So this is not a hard fact at this stage. This is just research and what studies are telling us. And it's saying that moderate drinking, low drinking, moderate drinking is found to have little impact. But heavy drinking can increase the cancer risk in women with less body mass. So obviously more research is needed. This is just studies at this stage. And I think when we look at it, the suggestion is that drinking before menopause has got some impact on breast cancer risk, but we also have to look at the volume at everybody at an individual level, because it's hugely important. So when we look at after menopause, so by this point our natural estrogen levels have declined and are very low unless we are on HRT, and that has stabilized our estrogen slightly. But as we age, we tend to get more sensitive to alcohol. So that can be more sensitive in terms of the sleep and the stress factors, more sensitive in terms of digestive issues. Some women actually report that as they get older, their core body temperature when they drink goes sky high. Now, if you've been through menopause and you've had hot flashes, you'll know that increasing your core temperature probably doesn't feel particularly great. So as we get older, it's a good time to look at scaling back, and when we are looking at kind of older, so from kind of 45 onwards, there is going to be an increase in estrogen because that's what alcohol does. But if that is increasing your estrogen whilst your natural estrogen is decreasing, then the studies are suggesting that an actual small amount of alcohol could be quite beneficial. So that's an interesting point. Now, the benefits of having that little increase in estrogen means improved cardiovascular health, stronger bone density, and better immune function. And that's essentially they're the pros of HRT, aren't they? So this is where you have to be careful and moderate. If you are on HRT and your estrogen is at a stable level, adding more estrogen, what does that then do? That increases your estrogen levels. And then we're going back to that risk element with that connection, the higher, not likelihoods, the increased risk of breast cancer. So these are all things that we have to consider. So we also, if we look at heavy drinking as a thing has such a knock-on effect for, other severe issues, heart disease, osteoporosis, falls, not being able to get up from falls, putting yourself at risk, and also considering the sweats, the menopausal sweats and the hot flashes and whatnot. So keeping a healthy balance is absolutely key. Just when we think about our own circumstances, I'm just looking at the questions here. If we're looking at everybody's individual circumstances, I'm not here to tell you need to do this, because I don't know what you do and I don't know what you drink and I don't know what decisions you make when you're drunk, if any at all. But is it for you? Is it a positive experience? Is it benefiting your health? Is it benefiting your goals? Or is it a negative impact on everything that you're trying to achieve? And if it's more negatives than positives, then start looking at changes that can be potentially made in your overall lifestyle. So yeah, it's a hugely interesting topic. So can I, sorry, just want to make sure. Pop your questions below. Was that helpful? Pop any questions that you have below so I can get to them before I dip off. And your homework is to sit and jot down what roughly, hi Sarah Jane, is just write down roughly your overall unit intake over a week. And I'm going to pop down a really good resource. Where was that earlier? That was it. I'm going to pop a link to a really good resource that has a lot of support should you want to make changes. It's got a lot of advice. It's got some tools that you can do. I thought it was really interesting, certainly. And pop it in there. There you go. So pop that in the chat. So let me know, guys. I'm not seeing anything come through. I don't think. I'll refresh. And that probably will cut me off. There we go. Yeah, so in summary, alcohol, negative for fat loss, alcohol, negative for hormones. The joys, the joys, the joys. Alrighty, so I don't see any questions coming through. If you have... Sorry, I don't know that we burn calories. I never knew that. There we go. I love how we can all learn something new. Thank you, Deborah. Hope you're doing well, my lovely. Sarah Jane's gym induction Monday. Well done, girl. Want to lose a stone and a half. I'm on HRT. Where do I start? I am going to tag the lovely Megan, who is our community specialist, and it's her birthday today. Happy birthday, Megan. Happy birthday. So she'll point you in the right direction, Sarah Jane. Alrighty. I am away. I have got a wee catch up with a lady, and then it is dinner time, and we are having chicken stir fry tonight with microwave rice. So yes, and is anybody obsessed by this company here, Loaf, who do the most amazing sofas and homewares and stuff? And I was flicking through, and I've got one Loaf sofa. I was like, oh, I wonder could we just get another one? And it's got me changing my entire house. So these things are terrible for my credit card. Okay, I'm away. Have an amazing evening. Any questions, pop them below. If anybody needs any help, just put in help, and the lovely Megan will be in touch to help you. My calendar is pretty oh no, Claire. I'm going to come and visit you to come and that, because there's none north of Birmingham, I don't think, but I love them. Anyway, so yeah, my calendar's chock-a-block tomorrow, and I've got a space on Friday. So if anybody wants a consultation this week, Friday is going to be Friday before 3 is your only space. But yeah, have an amazing evening, folks. Lovely to see so many familiar names. Love you all. Thank you. Bye.